Cheers, guys. Epix 911, welcome to the Sunday, June 11th, 2017 edition of VR News. A quick request for help. This is where I do basically a non-VR news, bit of a ramble. For anyone who's new to the channel, everything is timestamped. If you go in the description, you can just jump ahead of this. If you don't want to hear me asking for help on a Rift issue, jump ahead to the first news that you want to see and just watch from there. The rest of you, especially if you're Rift owners. So I'm sitting yesterday thinking, you know what, a good time to set up the Rift. Eventually I want to get some Star Trek playing in and really hankering to play some Elite Dangerous. Got the HOTAS all set up thinking, you know what, that way I just have to set up one sensor. How easy is that? Only I ended up with about 4 hours of frustration, no matter what. Black screen on the Rift with the amber light, even though everything checked out in Oculus Home, green on sensor, green on HMD. I could hear things, I couldn't see them. So I'm thinking, what's changed? I do have a 3-monitor setup, which the EVGA was always able to handle alongside the Rift and the Vive for 4 connections simultaneously. But maybe something changed with a driver, right? So I went back to a 1-monitor setup, tried every HDMI port, DVI adapters, DisplayPort adapters, you name it, no dice. Different USBs, no dice. For whatever reason, black screen. So if you remember that, I Googled it and go figure, all the issues are from launch last year, which I remember having it then too, but figured it out. And of course, half the crap you Google on, right, that you Google up, they'll say, I fixed it, but then they don't tell you how the hell they fixed it. So anyone out there that knows, please let me know. I will be eternally grateful. With that said, let's jump into the news. I want to start with this UK Amazon PlayStation VR bundle, which on the surface looks great, except for one massive glaring omission, which probably would have resulted in many, many more sales, right? So let's look at the price. £349 gets you the head-mounted display, camera, couple of games. So what do you get? You get Drive Club VR and you get Fapoint. Fantastic aim controller. Only no, you don't get the aim controller. It is the Fapoint aimless version. In other words, not the one bundled with the aim controller, which I see as a massive missed opportunity. Sure, there's people who are going to play it with DualShock, but the majority, I'm comfortable, would probably want the aim controller to play the damn game and be able to go on to use that for other stuff like Arizona Sunshine and play the rifle version that's coming out, etc. So yeah, my opinion, a missed opportunity for possibly more sales. Next up, Nielsen's with a report called the US Games 360 for 2017. If it sounds a little familiar, especially if you're an older gamer like me, you probably know why. And it's because Nielsen's decided the fate of basically North American television viewing habits for many decades. And it was basically a couple thousand families had one of the Nielsen's boxes attached to their TV, and what they watched determined what we watched. Good shows getting canceled was a common thing, right? Very frustrating. And one of the reasons, well, commercials is the other, that I pretty much just watch cable shows, stream, etc. I hate commercials, and I hate people talking, you know, like they never would in real life, right? So let's talk about this report, right? Take it with a big old pinch of sodium. 2,000 people interviewed, equal split, male, female, 27% age 25 to 34 said they intended to buy a VR headset, and 17% 18 to 24-year-old as well. Of that group, 69% men, 31% women. And then it goes on, of those who were looking into a VR platform, so of that 10%, who wanted what, right? And they go into PlayStation VR coming in at 10%, Samsung Gear VR at 9%, Rift at 8%, and Vive surprisingly trailing at 5%. You can look at a bunch of other statistics there. I'm just going to go to the meat of it, which is basically the knowledge of virtual reality. So the general US population was asked about virtual reality, again, based on the polls, right? So small sample sizes. 28% in 2016 knew of VR. Apparently for 2017, 51%, which is huge. That's almost double in virtual reality awareness. So not bad. If you want to look at the full report, there's a bunch of other stats in there. Take a look at the link in the description. All right, and next up, no surprise to me, but a lot or increasingly VR devs are looking towards the VR arcade industry to, further enhance their revenue streams. For example, the latest, Survios, the guys behind Raw Data, creating a game called Sprint Vector. And what's neat is they basically followed the old arcade formula, which is make a game that's addicting and hard, but the better you get, the longer you can play, which is that perfect arcade formula, right? Pump in more quarters, pump in more money, more playtime. So to me, again, no surprise, especially when the VR arcade industry really starts to grow. And it really hasn't yet. Some areas of the world, yes. Is it a huge difference maker? No, but it's still going to impact the bottom line. Just not a huge additional revenue stream at this point in time. Now, this next article, really interesting. If you're a Vive owner and you're interested in knowing what the differences are between 1.0 tracking and 2.0 and why, for example, your old HMD won't work with the new base stations, but the new HMDs work with the older and newer base stations. I'm going to sum it up for you so you don't have to read the whole thing, but if you do, it's really interesting. They've got a couple of videos as well, probably 15 minutes of your time, and you will be well versed in both tracking systems and why the differences. But here's the summary. So with the old tracking system, it had the two lasers and LEDs, infrared LEDs, that would blink 60 times a second. And it was a constant interval. The blink with the register of the sensors, then the IR sweep, right? And that would just kind of continue. The sensors in the HMD were designed to count until the blink. Then they'd reset and count again, and it was how distance and stuff is calculated. The problem is they've done away with that infrared blinking. It doesn't happen anymore. So if you've got an older HMD, which again, the sensors are designed to wait for the blink. So they will start out, reset, and count, and wait, and basically count to infinity because the blink never happens. Therefore, they just won't work. The newer HMDs, however, are basically programmed to be backwards compatible to work with the blink and without. So that's basically it in a nutshell. That's why your older HMD isn't going to work with the newer ones, but the newer HMD will work with both base stations, right? Like I said, if you want to see the whole thing, it really does a good job at scarredghost.com of breaking down those differences. All right, guys, that is it for the news. Like I said, a very quick news day. Expect that to ramp up this week with E3. I'm really excited. Can't wait to hear about some VR gaming goodness. Hope you guys had a good weekend. As always, cheers.